Oh hi. Luxembourg, the state. The Great Duchy. In Western Europe. Borders on Belgium in the north, on France in the west and the south, on Germany in the east. Has no outlet to the sea. The name comes from Drevnenovenmetsky Luxembourg, small city. The total area of Luxembourg is 2586.4 km. What does it by one of the smallest sovereign states in Europe? The population for January 1, 2020 makes 626,108 people. The member of the European Union since 1957, is also a member of NATO, OD and the Union. Together with Belgium and the Netherlands is a part of the Benelux countries. The most ancient traces of dwelling of people in the territory of Luxembourg belong to the Top Paleo and are dated about 35000 year BB. The most ancient artifacts of this period, the decorated bones found by a trans hen. Constant settlements with houses appear in the Neolithic era, in the 5th millennium BB. Traces of such settlements are found in the south of Luxembourg, in the city of Aspelt of Eves and also in communes Weilerlother, Krevenmacher and de Lutheran churches. The framework of dwellings consisted of wood trunks, a wall of the wattled rod covered with clay, and were roofed by reeder straw. The Neolithic ceramics is found near Remerschen. At the beginning of a Bronze Age, the population of the territory of Luxembourg was not numerous, however numerous finds belong to the period of the 13th centuries BB. Remains of dwellings, ceramics, weapon, the jewelry found in such places as Nospalt of N, Tokheim, Mumpak and Remerschen. In the 6th centuries BB the territory of Luxembourg was inhabited by Gauls, then it was included in structure of Rome. In the 5th century on the territory of Luxembourg Franks intruded. At the end of the 7th century the population of the territory of modern Luxembourg was converted to Christianity thanks to the Reverend Willibert who founded the monastery of Benedictines there. In the Middle Ages the earth was alternately a part of the Frankish kingdom of Austrasia, then the Sacred Roman Empire, and later Lorraine. In 963 she gained independence as a result of exchange of strategic territories. The matter is that in the territory of Luxembourg the strengthened Loch Lisselenberg, small fortress, which laid the foundation for the state, was located. Siegfried was at the head of this tiny possession. His descendants broadened the territories thanks to wars, political marriages, inheritances and contracts a little. In 1060 Conrad was proclaimed by the first Count of Luxembourg. His great-great-granddaughter became the famous ruler Ermesinda, and her great-great-grandson Henry VII, in turn, was the emperor of the Sacred Roman Empire since 1308. In 1354 the County Luxembourg became the duchy, but in 1443 Elizabeth von Gorliz, the niece of the emperor of the Sacred Roman Empire Sigismund, was forced to concede this possession to Philip III, the Duke of Burgundy. In 1477 Luxembourg was passed to a dynasty by Gabsburgov, and during the partition of the Empire of Charles V the territory appeared in the power of Spain. When the Netherlands excited a rebellion against Philip II, the King of Spain, Luxembourg kept a neutrality. As a result of this revolt the duchy took over the Risen party. The beginning of 30 Years' War. 1618-1648. Passed rather quietly for Luxembourg, but the real trouble and ruin came with the entry of France in it in 1635 to the duchy. Besides the Westphalian world. 1648 didn't bring tranquility to Luxembourg. It resulted from the conclusion of the Pyrenean Contract only in 1659. In 1679–1684 Louis XIV systematically captured Luxembourg, but in 1697 France transferred him to Spain. In the years of war for the Spanish inheritance, Luxembourg together with Belgium returned Austrian Gabsbergam. And 6 years later I started the French Revolution. Luxembourg over again passed France, so the state was influenced by all vicissitudes of life together with the French, Directoria and Napoleon. The former territory was divided into 3 departments in which the constitution of the Directory and the corresponding control system worked. Peasants of Luxembourg got under action of anti-church measures of the French government. An introduction of a military duty in 1798 led to a revolt in Luxembourg which was cruelly suppressed. With Napoleon's falling, the French dominion in Luxembourg ended. His destiny was decided by the Vienna Congress of 1815. Luxembourg was granted the status of the Great Duchy with Willem I, the representative of a dynasty of Oranski-Nassau, the King of the Netherlands, at the head. At Luxembourg autonomy remained, and communication with the Netherlands was rather nominal, only because the duchy was considered as personal possession of Willem. The territory also was a part of the German Union, and in her territory the Prussian garrison was billeted. Willem's government was rather rigid as he perceived the population of the territory as personal property and assessed him with huge taxes. Naturally, Luxembourg in 1830 supported the Belgian revolt against Willem, and in October of the same year was declared that Luxembourg is a part of Belgium, though Willem didn't refuse the rights for the territory. In 1831 France, England, Russia, Prussia and Austria decided that Luxembourg has to remain with Willem I and enter into the German Union. In 1839 under the London Contract the French-speaking western part of the duchy was a part of Belgium, the modern province Luxembourg. In 1842 William II signed the contract with Prussia under which Luxembourg became the participant of the customs union. This step considerably improved the economic and agricultural development of the duchy. Infrastructure was restored, the railroads appeared. In 1841 Luxembourg was granted the constitution which, however, didn't correspond to desires of the population. Strongly the French Revolution of 1848 as under her influence William granted more liberal constitution to which changes in 1856 were made affected autonomy. With disintegration of Confederation in 1866 Luxembourg became completely sovereign state. Officially it occurred on September 9, 1867. A little earlier, on April 29, 1867, at the International Conference in London between Russia, Great Britain, France, Prussia and some other states signed the contract on the status of Luxembourg. Under the contract, the crown of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg was recognized as hereditary possession of the House of Nassau, and the duchy was defined eternally neutral by the state. With William III's death in 1890 the Netherlands was left without male successor, so the Great Duchy passed Adolphe, to the former Duke of Nassau, and then and his son William, who died in 1912. They during rule were interested in questions of government a little, but Maria Adelaide, William's daughter, developed rough activity there that wasn't estimated by the population. In the years of World War I, Luxembourg kept a neutrality. The truth, in 1914 Germany nevertheless occupied it, and Maria Adelaide especially didn't protest. At the very beginning of 1919 the power in Luxembourg passed to Republican Committee of Public Rescue, but was returned to the monarchy by means of the French garrison.
However, because of these events and under the Treaty of Versailles, Maria Adelaide was forced to give a throne to the sister Charlotte, who was enthroned on January 9, 1919.
On a throne till 1964. Following the results of a plebiscite on September 28, 1919, most of the population wished to see Charlotte on a throne. In 1940 Germany the second time occupied Luxembourg. However, now the government refused to make a compromise with invaders, therefore all Yard was forced to emigrate and live in exile. In the duchy, traditional Nazi orders were established, French was restrained. The duchy in December 1941 was a part of the Third Reich. 12,000 people received the agenda about mobilization in Wehrmacht. From them 3,000 evaded from an appeal, and about the same died on East Front. In September 1944 release came. The same year Luxembourg was included into the economic union with Belgium and the Netherlands. Benelux countries. With the accession to NATO in 1949, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg broke the century military neutrality. In 1964 to a throne of Luxembourg there ascended Prince Jean. In October 2000 Jean abdicated, having referred to old age. To a throne there ascended his son Henry. The head of state, the Grand Duke. According to the Constitution, he individually carries out executive power. Defines an order of the organization of the government and its structure, claims and will publish laws, appoints to civil and military positions, orders armed forces, signs the international contracts, etc. Actually, all executive power belongs to the government appointed by the Grand Duke as a part of the Prime Minister and ministers. The supreme body of legislature, the Chamber of Deputies, elected by the population for 5 years by a general direct election on the system of proportional representations.
Suffrage is granted to all citizens who reached 18 years, and vote on legislative elections is obligatory.
Control in districts is exercised of commissioners, in cantons, burgomasters. Self-government institutions in communes are electoral councils. Body of the constitutional supervision, the Constitutional Court. The highest judicial authority, the Supreme Court, consisting of Court of Cassation and Court of Appeal.
Courts of first instance -2 district courts, the lowest link of the judicial system -3 magistrates courts, the highest judicial authority of administrative justice, administrative court.
Courts of first instance of administrative justice, administrative tribunal, the highest judicial authority of social justice, the Supreme Council. Courts of first instance of social justice, the highest judicial authority of military justice, the Supreme Military Court. Courts of the Court of Appeal of Military Justice, Courts of Appeal, the lowest link of judicial authority of military justice, the Councils of War.
Advisory body on matters of law and the Supreme Administrative Court, the State Council appointed by the Grand Duke.
The main law enforcement agency, police of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. The association, left-wing socialist/communistic/Trotskyist. Revolutionary Socialist Party. Communist Party of Luxembourg. The country is located in Western Europe, borders on Belgium, Germany and France. Together with Belgium and the Netherlands enters the Benelux countries. In the east the country is limited to the Moselle River. A relief, generally the hilly sublime plain in the north of which spurs of Ardennes tower. The highest point hill Nave, 560 m. The total area of the country, a little more than 2586 km. By the size of the territory it is comparable to the capital of Russia Moscow after expansion of her territory. In the administrative relation Luxembourg is divided into 12 cantons, and cantons into 116 communes. Till October 2015 there was also a division into 3 districts. The main population of Luxembourg, Luxembourgers, which self-name a Letzboer. They live also in Belgium, Germany, France and the USA. Total number -602,000 people, including in Luxembourg -285,000 people. Speak Luxembourgish of the German group of Indo-European family with writing on the basis of the Latin alphabet. Also German and French languages are widespread. Most of believers, Catholics presented by the Archdiocese of Luxembourg. There are Protestants, the largest Protestant organizations, Evangelic Church of Luxembourg and Protestant Reformed Church of Luxembourg. As of 2019, by estimates of the Union, 291,723 immigrants, or 47.4% of the population of the country lived in Luxembourg. Advantages: one of the richest countries of Europe with the highest standard of living. In the city of Luxembourg many organizations of the EU are located. Thanks to favorable conditions and an offshore zone in the capital, about 1,000 investment funds and more than 200 banks, more than in any other city of the world, are placed. The 4th place in the world on the level of income of the population. In 2010 $ for the person a year. 10% of GDP of the country are formed due to extraction of iron ore, production of steel and cast iron. Weaknesses: huge external debt. Income from services for the international partners is 65% of GDP. That is the country sensitive to changes in other countries. The country is sensitive to recession, to crisis of 2008-2011 very hard. The basis of the economy is made, first of all, by the developed services sector, including in financial area. In 1995 the gross internal product, HIP, was estimated at $17.1 billion, or $44172 per capita. $9 in Belgium and dollars in Switzerland. Proceeding from purchasing power parity, expenses of the population of Luxembourg made in shower calculation $16827. In the USA $-17834. Annual growth of NIPINI in the early 90s on average was 5.5%, that is much higher than an average value for EU member states.
In the economy of Luxembourg the important place is taken by banking. Considerable attention is paid to creation of telecommunication networks and production of audio and video equipment.
Chemical products, cars, plastic, fabrics, glass, porcelain are issued.
Many new enterprises were created by major companies of the USA.
For the foreign companies, very attractive factor is that local workers know several languages.
Almost all energy consumed in Luxembourg is imported, including oil, natural gas, coal. Banking and financial services became a main type of economic activity which in 1995 concentrated 31.9% of GDP and 9.2% BSI. Luxembourg, one of financial centers of Europe, and in 1995 there were here representative offices of 220 foreign banks who were attracted by the adopted in the late 70s most favorable laws on bank activity in the EU guaranteeing maintaining confidentiality of deposits.
From the moment of an entrance to the Eurozone in Luxembourg, euro addresses
the Luxembourg franc and the Belgian franc, which were issued, the Luxembourg Monetary Institute, which sponsors the financial sector addressed earlier.
In 1998, the Central Bank of Luxembourg was founded.
In the budget of 1996, income was 159 billion Luxembourg francs, and expenses minus 167.2 billion.
42% of all income, on a share of straight lines minus 48% fell to the share of indirect taxes. The total tax revenues were 45% of GDP, the highest rate for EU countries. Foreign trade of Luxembourg is connected with foreign trade of Belgium, and the National Bank of Belgium carries out the international operations of Luxembourg. The most part of industrial output goes for export, and 1/3 it make metals and finished products.
Luxembourg completely imports energy carriers for the industry, coal and oil.
Also cars, fabrics, cotton, food and farm vehicles are imported. To the middle of the 1970th years, the trade balance usually was positive, and receipts from export exceeded expenses on import, but steel reduction in production significantly changed balance. In 1995, the cost of export was $7.6 billion, and import cost minus $9.7 billion. The trade balance comes down at the expense of a large income of the financial sector. The main foreign trade partners of Luxembourg, EU country. In 2008, Luxembourg was recognized by the richest state of EC. The Luxembourg real estate market, one of the most conservative in Europe. According to Global Property Guide, the average price of square meter in 2008 is €47.45. A rent rate about 4% per annum. Recently, as well as everywhere in the world, the growth rate of the prices decreased. It reflects a global economic situation. At the same time, the real estate all the same remains the most profitable market in comparison, for example, with the stock market. Annual nominal. Without inflation. Increase in prices during the period from 2004 to 2008 changed within 5-20% for apartments and 0-10% for houses. The quality of construction in Luxembourg follows the high standard of living, and it is, as a rule, more best than in the neighboring France, Germany and Belgium. Foreigners in Luxembourg can freely get the real estate. The one-time tax on acquisition of the house or apartment will make 7% of the amount of transaction.
In case of acquisition of housing in primary market in the price, it will be also included 15% of the VAT.
All execution of the transaction is carried out at the notary. Any options of fraud are almost excluded.
Since January 1, 2019, the minimum wage in Luxembourg makes Euro 2071.1
gross and Euro 1740 net. The hourly rate is €11.97. As of 2020, the minimum wage in Luxembourg,
Euro 2142, is second highest in the world, acting in all territory of the country after Australian, Euro 2180.
The highest minimum wage since November 1, 2020 in the canton of Geneva, francs 23,
Euro 21.30.
In an hour, francs 40.86. Euro 3,785.47. In a month, extraction of iron ore, production of iron and cast iron, thanks to stay in the territory of the state of the large-scale deposit is conducted. 674 km. Iron ore treats the extensive Lotharingen basin at the southern border of Luxembourg. At high industrial development in the country continue to be engaged in traditional branches of agriculture, meat and milk, livestock production, gardening, and along the Moselle River, wine growing. The main direct taxes are corporate income tax, income tax from the natural person, the municipal tax levied by the state on behalf of communes, and also the property tax. The VAT belongs to indirect taxes. In Luxembourg, the annual registration tax, registration and stamp duties, the import duties and excises on fuel, tobacco, alcohol are also established. The only tax which is levied by municipalities independently, it is land tax. Corporate income tax is levied on the total income of the company reduced by the sum of expenses. Payers of this tax, the organizations registered in Luxembourg, are taking there the main place of management admit. The corporate tax rate consists of three parts. The general income tax rate is equal to 21%. The contribution to fund of unemployment is estimated of 4% from the general rate, that is 0.84%. 21% x 4%. The rate of a municipal tax is established by municipality. For example, in the capital it makes 6.75%. Thus, the cumulative tax rate of corporate tax on the profit of the taxpayer of the city of Luxembourg will be 28.59%. 21% plus 0.84% plus 6.75%. Income tax on the natural person in Luxembourg is levied on the income of the taxpayer on an ascending scale. The taxpayer, the person living in Luxembourg not less than 6 months in a year, admits. Tax base can be reduced by the sum of various deductions, including contributions to social funds. Since 1848, the German-language newspaper Luxemburger Wort, the most popular newspaper of Luxembourg, is issued. In 1913, the German and Französischsprachige newspaper Tageblatt, the second most popular in the country, was based.
During the early medieval period, the monastery in Echternach were the fine miniatures reflecting in the 8th-10th centuries Irish, and at a turn of the 10th and 11th centuries the German traditions were carried out, was the main art center.
Also carved salaries of the Gospel with plates from ivory were executed. In the 11th century, numerous locks remained in ruins. Romance chapels. A decahedral chapel of the Vianden Loch and a basilica. St. Philibordus Church in Echternach, 1017-31. With sculptural furniture were built. Gothic churches the 14th, 16th centuries. In the cities of Luxembourg, Rinschleiden, Seffonten, etc. Differed in abundance of a sculpture in interiors. Tabernacles, statues of Madonnas and saints, gravestones. In the second half of the 16th century, the style of the Renaissance. A town hall, nowadays Ducal Museum, in Luxembourg, 1563. And in the 17th century, Baroque extended. Cathedral in Luxembourg, 1613-21. The strengthened residences of the nobility were built. Locks of Vitrans, Anzenberg, etc. In the 18th century endured blossoming arts and crafts. Production of furniture, metalwares, faience. In architecture of the 19th century, classicism gave way to eclecticism. Intensive growth of the industry caused at the end of the beginning of the 20th century extensive industrial and housing construction. Industrial settlements in Ash, Tudelands, etc. The fine arts developed in the 19th century under the French influence. B. Friese's portraits, romantic landscapes of M. Hirsch. After World War I, influence of the German Expressionism was shown, then the French Fauvism. Lines of sharp grotesque, juiciness of scale, sympathy for the disadvantaged noted. Cutter's painting. In works by modern artists. 5. Kessler. Probst M. Hoffmann, etc. Influences of A. Matisse, P. Picasso, F. Leger and other French masters are notable.
At the Olympic competitions of arts, the artist from Luxembourg Jean Jacobi was twice awarded with a gold medal, in 1924 in Paris and in 1928 in Amsterdam.
Sites: Vianden Loch, Schlossberg. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.